Stanislava Markovich was born in Kruševac, Serbia on November 24, 1919, to Radomir and Leposava Popović. She was the youngest of the three Popović girls, including Zorica and Lubinka. She is currently married to Vukasin Markovich and has two sons, Božidar Robert and Zlobodan Dani. Presently, she is the administrator of the Serbian Heritage Museum.
Mrs. Markovich, tell us about your education and life in your home country.
Well, I went to school in different places because my father was inspector of railroads and he was moved to different places. So I started my public school in my hometown, Kruševac. But after a couple of years, we had to move, and we moved to 2-3 different places. Finally, when I started the first year of high school, which is grade 5, according to their education system, we were in Belgrade. And from that time on, I was in Belgrade until I finished all my education there. It was, I finished public school, high school, teacher's school, and the Institute of Education.
What did you do after that?
After that, I began teaching. First in the city called Subotica, and then we moved to Kraljevo. When I got married, we moved to Kraljevo because Kraljevo had an Air Force base, and my husband was an Air Force officer. So we had to look for a place which had an Air Force base. And I taught in Kraljevo, stayed in Kraljevo until all through the war and until 1950 when I escaped to Canada.
What did you teach?
I taught Serbo-Croatian language and Yugoslav literature and also Russian language and Russian literature.
Tell us the story behind Canada becoming your home.
Canada becoming my home. Well, I have to tell you a little bit about the situation in Yugoslavia and the reason why I came to Canada. First of all, during the war, my husband became a prisoner of war, and he spent 4 years in Germany, upon which, when the war ended, the communists came to Yugoslavia, communist regime, and he, along with thousands of former Yugoslav officers who were loyal to the crown, refused to go back to Yugoslavia. So he spent another 4 or 5 years in Germany as a displaced person because they didn't know what to do with him. And finally, the Allied countries opened up their quotas and lifted their quotas and received so many of those officers and men who didn't want to go home and stayed homeless in Germany. So he decided to come to Canada. He came to Canada in 1949, worked on contract farming, harvesting sugar beet, and then in 1950 he applied, made an affidavit to bring me and my son to Canada. Well, at that time, my son was 10 years old, and communist borders of Yugoslavia were closed. Passports were not being issued only to confidential diplomatic Communist Party members, and I wasn't either, so I couldn't even hope to get a passport. So somehow my husband made arrangements to get us out of the country illegally. And in the summer of 1950, my son and I went to the Adriatic coast for a vacation. And from there, someone came, a person that my husband sent, came to pick us up, and he led us across the border without a passport through the night, and we came to Trieste. From Trieste, after spending 3 months there to obtain the displaced persons papers, we came to Canada.
Now tell us your experience in the new land. What did you do for a living?
Oh, when I came here, it was very, very difficult. First of all, my husband didn't have a steady job. And as an immigrant, all doors were not open to him like now. At that time, everybody was looking for people who were British subjects, and he wasn't. So he would get a job and then lose a job and get a job and be laid off. And so we were very, very poor and had an awfully difficult time. So I had to go and look for a job myself, not knowing any English. I had to take the lowest possible jobs that were offered. Luckily, I knew how to sew. So my first job was at the textile specialties. They were making children's clothes there, and it was a piecework. And you had to do so much for a wage of 50 cents an hour. If you did more, you got a little more paid. However, I never did get any more. I was lucky when I made quota, and so I worked for straight 50 cents an hour. You have no idea how fast you have to work. I've never seen anyone work so fast in my whole life. I didn't know how to operate a machine for, pleasure sewing for little things, but this was something else. Anyway, from there on, they finished their season work and they let us go. So after a few months, I obtained a work at Standard Product. This was a real advancement for me because they paid $1 an hour, and I thought I was really making big money. So there we were making bags for Korean soldiers. Korean War was in progress then, 1952. And we were making big bags, canvas bags, and rucksacks. It was a very difficult job. My knuckles were all raw, and I had calluses on them, but I was lucky to have a job. My second son, Danny, was born in 1951. So I had to take him as a baby to a neighbor, and early in the morning leave him there, and then when I got home I would pick him up and bring him home with me. So it was, I would say it was hard, but we never gave in, we sort of sit it out hoping that it would become better. Then after that the Korean War ended and we all lost our jobs. And I looked for a job at the Hotel Dieu hospital. All of us before the war had to have Red Cross training, first aid training. So I thought maybe this would help me get a job. And I did get a job as a nurse's aide. At that time, I wasn't alone from Europe. There were all kinds of nurse's aides with, I am sure the Hotel Dieu had the best educated nurse's aide of all other hospitals. So we washed the beds, we cleaned the rooms, we changed beds, gave baths to patients, and it was an interesting experience. I've never been near sick people, and this gave me a different insight into life, that life can be even worse if you're not healthy. So my own problem didn't seem so big. On the other hand, I also began to speak English because I had to talk English. But in the factory, you don't speak, you just work, and in the noise, nobody can hear you. And besides, you don't have time to talk. In the hospital, I began to speak English, and I learned a few words every day. Having had 3 other foreign languages in my background through my school in Yugoslavia, I knew how to ask questions. Why do you do this? Why do you say that? Why do you say, I worked, or I have been working, and that sort of thing, the tenses and different way of saying. However, I must say that English was one of the most difficult languages that I've tackled. I tackled German, French in secondary school, and then Russian at the college level, but never prepared me for the difficulties in English, because it seems that you have to learn the entire sentences. It's not enough to know the words. You have to know how to put those words into a sentence. And that was quite an obstacle for me. However, in being stubborn as I am and consistent, I began to speak little by little. And each afternoon during visiting hours, the people who didn't have any visitors, I'd go and talk to them and improve my English a little bit at a time. Then when my English was good enough, I left the hospital and applied at the library, because I had, in my experience back home, in addition to teaching, I was working as a volunteer in a public library in this town of Kraljevo. As a matter of fact, that was the first library they had. I founded that library. So on the basis of that, I went to talk to the head librarian, chief librarian actually. And she was so interested to know the system there and how we worked there and what was being done. So we became sort of friends. And I took out a few books about the system here. And when the position opened, they called me and they gave me a job. And I started at the lowest level. Started as a clerk, checking books in and out, mending books, shelving them, making records of periodicals received, and that sort of thing. However, they realized that I had more education than that, and they let me help patrons when they came to me occasionally. That was fun, but there were questions which I couldn't figure out what they were. I distinctly remember one boy coming and asking me about material on the Battle of Alamo. What is Alamo? Where is it, and in what century? Where does it belong? I had no idea. I didn't know where to start looking. So I had to go to the head librarian and I said, I don't know what this boy wants. So she took over. And right then and there I decided, these people are very good to me. I have an opportunity to develop my career and go back to my own sort of work, intellectual work, rather than work as a manual labor. So I decided I was going to take some university courses and learn more about Canadian history and literature, American history and literature, and British history and literature. And I did that. I applied at the university. They accepted me, and little by little, I finished. I got my degree in English. Then after that, they advanced me at the library, and I thought, well, if I'm going to stay here, I might as well use my potential. So after a year of, I graduated in 1961, got my BA degree from the University of Windsor. And after a year rest, I applied at the University of Michigan for a degree, master's degree in library science, and took evening courses. Of course, I was doing all this university work here in evening courses. Took evening courses and one semester, excuse me, at the campus in Ann Arbor. And in 1965, I've got my degree. And after that, it was easy.
Where was the location you started your professional life? As a
Well,
librarian?
I started working as a clerk at the Willisted Library. Upon finishing my BA degree, I became assistant librarian. No, library assistant with a degree. When I completed my library science degree, then of course I became librarian. They moved me to the main library, which at that time was at the corner of Victoria and Park. It was the old Carnegie building, one of the oldest Carnegie buildings built with the Carnegie Fund to be torn down. Then from there on, we moved to the main library on Oulette, which was after Carnegie was torn down. That was the main library. Prior to moving to Oulette, I already was promoted to the assistant director. And I enjoyed that very much. It was a position of challenge. It was a position where you were there where things were happening, where things were planned, and it was a real pleasure to work there.
What are some of the highlights of your position as the assistant director of Windsor Public Library?
Well, I must say, the highlight of my career was planning the new main library. We started planning with departments telling us what they wanted to do and what programs they wanted to have. And we worked with the architect, and the architects built the walls around to accommodate these programs and services that the library is supposed to provide for the people of Windsor. I remember speaking to the architects when it came to the final outside look of the building. They were saying, "What are your ideas about the facade?" And everybody contributed a little bit. And I said, "Listen, whatever you do, just make it irresistibly inviting so that people who pass by cannot resist but enter it." And they did. I must say they did a very good job. The main library is well attended. People feel it's their library. And from the first day, and at the day of the opening, I watched the people. The opening ceremony was in the lobby of the library, main lobby. There were hundreds of people. And as soon as the ceremony was over, they were invited to see the building. You should have seen them. They moved around as if they were right at home. And it was really a very satisfying feeling to see that this library is not intimidated in any possible way, that it is built for people and that people felt comfortable to use it. So I think that is the highlight of my career.
What are your achievements and accomplishments in your life as a Serbian?
As a Serbian, well, I think I was one of the first immigrant women to get a degree. Most people who came here were educated, but they didn't speak the language. Having to cope with everyday life, it wasn't easy. And in addition to that, to learn another language, to learn another culture, to adjust to the way of life, and to get a degree during advanced age, it really was not practiced by too many. I was the first woman that I decided I was going to go to university. My husband supported me 100%. If he didn't feel that way, and if he didn't feel that he could put up with all this studying and going to courses, evening courses, I probably couldn't have done it. But he was understanding. And I achieved that university degree. Then on top of that, I've got my master's in library science. Then it was unheard of that an immigrant woman would come to the position of an assistant director in a large public library system such as Windsor. I was also offered the position of a director, but that I declined because I thought it would be better for the library to have someone who was born here, who can deal with city council, who can deal with ministry and other government agencies. And I thought I better stay as the assistant director. Anyway, there was enough challenge and there was enough enjoyment in my work that I didn't need to go to the top.
What about the Canadian, as a Canadian?
As a Canadian, I enjoyed Canada tremendously because many immigrants have bad experience. They feel until their dying days that they are something different from Canadian people. I didn't have that feeling. I felt that I was accepted as a Canadian wherever I went. Of course, I was always interested and eager to learn. At the library, I never felt a foreigner. People really accepted me as one of them. And then as assistant director, I felt my duty to know what the community needs, to find out what the community needs. So I joined many community organizations. I was a member and at one time president of the local council of women. I was a member and at one time vice president of the Greater Windsor Foundation. I was a president of the Music, Literature and Art Club. I was a member, I have been a member, still am, of the Art Gallery, member of the Windsor Symphony. At one time I was chairman of the Finance Committee for the Symphony Board, a member of the Women's Association of the Windsor Symphony. Oh, there must be several other groups, and each time in each group I had my ears and eyes open for their needs of any possible library service, and that was coordinated as needed.
Now tell us about the present position you are holding and how you established and developed.
Present position. I retired from the Windsor Public Library at the end in December 1979 because my health wasn't, at that time, I wasn't in a very good condition. Probably from all this running around, from all this work and all this effort. I enjoyed it very much, but it was taking its toll on me. So I decided to retire, especially because my husband was already retired. And we wanted to be together. We were separated during the war and after for almost 9.5 years, actually. And we thought now is our time to spend some time together. A couple of years it took me to build my strength. And then we traveled, enjoyed our life. And in 1986, the Serbian community started planning for the new community center. And right away, I said, we should have a museum in there. Because unless we have some records of our existence, I said, we didn't exist here at all. So the Serbian Heritage Women's Society, where I belonged, which was established in 1972. We conducted, in 1975 and 76, we conducted survey of the Serbian community. We distributed questionnaire to establish who were those who came first, what was life like when they came, what did they do, how did they survive, and to at least get the names, all of the names. So we had all this, and in addition to photographs and documents that they gave us, we also collected some artifacts, some mementos that they brought with them from home, that they were quite willing to part with. So from all those things that we collected, we had our first exhibit in the Hiram Walker Historical Museum in 1976. The museum lasted 4 months. It was called the Ethnicity, the Serbians of Windsor. Then when the exhibit was over, we collected our stuff, put them in cedar chests, and kept them for better days. 1986, here comes the planning for the Serbian Community Center, and right away we said, hey, we want a museum there. We have some stuff that we could exhibit, and if you will give us the facilities, we'll run the museum. So I sat on the building committee for the community center for almost a year prior to the opening. And I fought for more facilities, for proper facilities. They were going to give us exhibit room, and that's it. They said, what do you need? What else do you need? I said, but we need an office. And I said, we need a storage for things that are not on the exhibit, and for things that will be given to us. Finally, grudgingly, they said, all right. So we now have the facilities that are right here. In 1987, August 29th, Serbian Heritage Museum was open. We didn't have any money to have things for the exhibit, but we asked for a grant, and we received a grant from the then Ministry of Culture and Citizenship. I believe they gave us between $9,000 and $10,000. I can't remember the exact figure. From that money, we purchased showcases, we purchased mounting material, anything that was necessary, some tools, and all kinds of things that were needed for that exhibit. And we opened up the first exhibit for the opening of the center that included Windsor Serbs, homeland, coming to Windsor, and life in Windsor. It was a very popular exhibit. It stayed on for a few months, and then we decided this museum is not just going to be a dormant place. We'll have to change exhibits in order to teach not only our children, Sunday school children, about their history and tradition and heritage, but also to share this with our fellow Canadians in Windsor. So various exhibits change. During these 5 years we had, I don't know how many exhibits, but every year at least 3 or 4 exhibits.
What kind of exhibit do you do here?
All exhibits have to do something with Serbian history, Serbian heritage, Serbian customs, skills, and that sort of thing, dealing with Serbian history in general and Serbs of Windsor in particular. So we had exhibits such as 50th anniversary of the Circle of Serbian Sisters, 40th anniversaries of the Gračanica Choir here in Windsor. We had history of World War I, then anniversary of World War II in 1991. We had Serbian folk instruments. We had Serbian folk art. We had local Serbian artists exhibit, and presently we have an exhibit which is part of the Windsor Centennial, and it's called Windsor Serbs and Their Achievements.
How do you manage to operate all this?
How do I manage to operate? First of all, I work as a volunteer. There are other people from the Serbian Heritage Women's Society that help also as volunteers. Every year, I apply for a grant to the Canada Immigration and Employment. They have Job Creation Section 25, which funds projects, special projects for the unemployed people. Through those projects, through grants that I receive for those projects, I have been able to do the cataloging, to do the proper storage, to conduct a questionnaire among the Serbian people, to establish genealogical files. Last year, along with the anniversary of World War II, we had a series of interviews, videotaped interviews with Serbian veterans. And this year we're doing research about the Serbian business and professional people in Windsor. This is also a part of that series.
Oh, sorry. Did you do any writings?
Yes, occasionally I wrote for Voice of Canadian Serbs. I wrote book reviews for the Windsor Star, and I also wrote a chapter on the Windsor Serbs in the book Serbs of Ontario, which was published by the Serbian Heritage Academy in Toronto.
Have you received any awards at all for all this work you did for the community?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, the Serbian Heritage Women's Society gave me an award for Woman of the Year. That actually was the first year that that award was established. And I was honored and fortunate to receive that first award.
Do you have any hobbies and interests, and what are your pastime activities?
Hobbies. I have a lot of interests, but not much time to practice too many hobbies. Of course, my first love is reading. As a librarian, what else do you expect? I also, from time to time, I did drawing and painting. I also took courses in drawing and painting, both in Yugoslavia and here at the University of Windsor. And I love doing needlepoint. That relaxes me, actually. I can come home tired and put on the frame of the picture in front of me and forget about all the pressures and just concentrate on the needlepoint, the pattern, and feel completely rested.
Now talk to us about your family. What does your husband do while you are busy with the museum?
My husband, as I said, was Air Force officer. He finished, graduated from one and only military academy in Belgrade before the war. And after that, he went to Air Force School, and he was officer until the beginning of the war. During the war, he was prisoner of war. After that, he was a displaced person. Then when he came here, he came on a contract, a government contract, as a farm laborer. He worked in Manitoba on sugar beet, on harvest, Then finally he worked a little bit on railroad, and then after that he came to Windsor, because this is where the factories were. This is where the most Serbs congregated to find a job. And he worked in 3 different factories. He worked at Standard Product, which no longer exists. Worked at Chrysler's. But as time were changing, economic cycles evolved, where there was work and when there was no work. He was laid off and went back to work and laid off and was completely insecure. Then he also obtained a job in the hospital, worked as a oxygen technician, from knowing oxygen, worked with oxygen from his previous Air Force experience. So that's where he retired. He retired from Hotel du Hospital. Now that he is retired, we first, couple of years, we traveled. And now that I'm very busy here, working every day, he reads a great deal. So he goes to the library, he gets books for himself and for myself. He walks, he also exercises and swims 3 times a week. And he also does shopping for me. I make a list and he goes shopping. So his day is full. Naps during the day sometimes when he's tired. His day is really full.
What about your children?
I have 2 boys, as I said before, Božidar Robert and Slobodan Dan. Robert had finished master's degree in urban geography and at the University of Windsor. Later on, again at the University of Windsor, he completed another degree, honors degree in the fine arts. He always loved to draw and paint, just like myself. So now he has that for his retirement, something that he can enjoy. He was married to Evelyn de Bracken. They have 2 daughters, Lori and Kelly. He later divorced Evelyn and for a long time didn't get married. Just recently he got married to Patricia Robert. His 2 girls are grown up. Lori is 23. She's in the final year of the University of Windsor in the program, honors program, Theater and Dramatic Art. Kelly is also involved at the University of Windsor, and she is studying visual arts and dance. My second son also got his master's degree in economics from the University of Windsor. He is married to Patricia Johnson. They have 3 children, Adriana, who is 10, Alexander, who is 7, and little Peter, who is 4. Dan is working as assistant director of research and investment at the OMERS company, which is Ontario Municipal Employees Retirement System. And Pat is working as a civil engineer for Imperial Oil. They both all live in Toronto.
Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.